Adaora couldn't run, not while Ezinne was still missing, not while the village remained blind to the evil lurking in its shadows. She had exposed Nwosu, but she knew now he was just a pawn. The real mastermind was still out there, watching, waiting, planning. Adaora didn't sleep that night. She searched every corner of the village, knocking on doors, questioning anyone who had seen the girl before she vanished. A farmer said he saw a black jeep parked near the market square. A trader whispered about a man in a red cap, speaking in hushed tones with an elder. The same elder who had told Adaora to let the past stay buried. Her hands clenched. They were protecting someone. Then she heard it. The name she feared the most. Ikenna, Dike's brother. He had been gone for years, but now he had returned to finish what his brother started. Adora's stomach twisted. Ikenna wasn't just rebuilding the brotherhood, he was expanding it, and Ezinne was going to be their first sacrifice. The next morning, Adaora overheard two men talking near the village. "I heard the child crying," one whispered, "from inside the forest." Everyone knew no one entered the forbidden forest at night. It was cursed, or at least that's what they were made to believe. But Adaora wasn't afraid of curses. She was afraid of what was real. As the sun set, Adaora grabbed a lantern and entered the forest alone. The air was thick. The trees twisted like shadows, hiding secrets older than the village itself. Then she saw it, a small hut deep in the woods, and inside, the faint sound of a child weeping. Adora's heart pounded. She stepped closer, then froze. A voice cut through the silence. "You should have stayed away, Ikenna." He stood in the shadows, watching her with cold, knowing eyes. Behind him, several men emerged from the darkness, their faces hidden behind masks. The Brotherhood was here, but Adaora had walked straight into their trap. Will she escape before it's too late, or has she finally met the true face of death? The real nightmare is only beginning. Adora's breath hitched. Ikenna stood before her, his eyes as cold as death itself. Behind him, masked men emerged from the shadows, their torches flickering against the trees. And inside the hut, Ezinne's muffled sobs. Adaora clenched her fist. She had walked into a trap, but she wasn't going to die without a fight. Ikenna tilted his head, amused. "You are braver than I expected," he said, stepping closer. His voice was calm, too calm, but bravery won't save you tonight. Adaora swallowed hard. "You took an innocent child," she spat. "You and your men are nothing but monsters." Ikenna chuckled. "A monster?" He gestured to the masked men. "These men, they are survivors, just like me, just like Dike." His eyes darkened. "You took my brother away from me, Adaora, and now you're going to take his place." Her blood ran cold. Ikenna snapped his fingers, the men closing in. Adaora lunged. She grabbed a burning torch from one of the men and swung wildly, the flames licking at their robes. They stumbled back, surprised. That was all she needed. She raced past them, kicking down the hut door. Inside, Ezinne lay bound, her face streaked with tears. "Adaora," she gasped. Adaora caught the ropes, but before they could escape, Ikenna blocked the doorway. His face twisted with rage. "You think you can just leave?" he hissed. He pulled a dagger from his robe. Adaora shielded Ezinne. "If you kill me," she said, "the whole village will know the truth." Ikenna grinned. "They already do," he whispered, "but power makes people blind." Adora's heart pounded. They were outnumbered, but she had one last chance. She lifted the torch and flung it onto the hut's straw roof. The fire caught instantly, Smoke filled the air. As Ikenna and his men stumbled back, coughing, Adaora grabbed Ezinne's hand and ran. Through the forest, through the shadows, until they reached the village gates. She collapsed, gasping for breath. Ezinne was safe, but Adaora knew one thing. Ikenna wasn't dead, and he wouldn't stop until he finished what his brother started. The real battle had just begun. Adaora didn't sleep. Not when Ikenna was still out there. Not when the whole village remained blind to the evil in their midst. She had exposed Dike. She had escaped Ikenna. But now, she had to end this for good, because she knew he would come back. At sunrise, Adaora gathered the villagers in the market square. She stood before them, her face streaked with smoke and defiance. Ikenna is alive, she declared, and he wouldn't stop until we stop him first. Murmurs rippled through the crowd, but then a voice rose above the whispers. Why should we believe you? Adaora turned and saw Chief Okafor, the village elder, who had always told her to let the past stay buried. His eyes were cold, unmoved. You say Ikenna is a monster, he said, stepping forward. But where is your proof? Adora's chest tightened. She looked around. Doubt. It spread through the crowd like poison. Then another voice spoke up. She's just a woman. What does she know? Laughter. Mockery. Adora's fingers curled into fists. She knew what was happening. Ikenna's power ran deeper than she thought. That night, as Adaora prepared to leave her home, she found something on her doorstep. A small wooden bowl. Inside, a severed finger. Her stomach twisted. A note lay beside it. Run before you become the next offering. Adora's grip tightened around the paper. She wasn't running, not this time. The next morning, Adaora went to the only person she thought she could trust, Mama Ejima, the old woman who had raised her when her parents died. The one who always told her the truth is a weapon. Adaora knelt before her. I need your help, she whispered. Ikenna is planning something bigger than before. Mama Ejima sighed. Her fingers trembled as she reached for a small box. She opened it, revealing a blood-red cloth. Adora's breath hitched. She had seen that cloth before, wrapped around Dike's wrist during the rituals. She looked up, her heart pounded. Mama, her voice broke. You, the old man's eyes filled with regret. I tried to protect you, child, she whispered, but some debts must be paid. Adaora barely had time to react. The door behind her burst open. Ikenna stepped inside, and this time he wasn't alone. The real horror was just beginning. Adora's body tensed. Ikenna stood in the doorway, his presence filling the small hut with a suffocating darkness. His men flanked him, their faces hidden behind masks, silent, waiting. But it was Mama Ejima's betrayal that sent a sharp pain through Adora's chest. You, Adora's voice trembled. You were part of this all along? Mama Ejima's eyes held both sorrow and something far worse. Resignation. I did what I had to, she murmured. You don't understand the forces at play, Adaora. Ikenna chuckled, stepping forward. Oh, but she will, he said smoothly, just like the ones before her. Adora's heart pounded. She couldn't let him win. Not after everything she had fought for. She took a step back, her mind racing. Why? She demanded. What do you gain from all this? Ikenna's smirk deepened. You still don't see it, do you? He whispered. He gestured to Mama Ejima. Ask her how many months this blood has fed. How many deaths it has settled. Adora's stomach twisted. Mama Ejima lowered her gaze. The village, she said quietly, it thrived because of the sacrifices, because of men like Dike and Ikenna. Adaora froze. It wasn't just Ikenna. It wasn't just Dike. The entire village was complicit. Adora's breath came in short, sharp bursts. There was no escape, no one to trust. And yet, she wasn't done fighting. She darted from the window, but Ikenna moved fast. Too fast. He grabbed her wrist, yanking her back with brutal force. Adaora gasped, struggling, but his grip was like iron. "You're not going anywhere," he whispered. He pulled a curved dagger from his belt. "You should have stayed quiet, Adaora. You should have run when you had the chance." He raised the dagger, but before the blade could pierce her, the door burst open. Torches, shouts, the villagers stormed in, led by Ezinne. Her eyes blazed with fury. "You think you can silence her?" she spat. "You think we won't fight back?" Ikenna staggered. Confusion flickered across his face, followed by fury. "You?" But before he could react, a man lunged forward, Chief Okafor. Adora's breath hitched. He had called her a liar just the day before. Now his spear was aimed at Ikenna's chest. "The spirits have spoken," he declared, "and their wrath is upon you." Ikenna's men tried to flee, but the villagers surrounded them. There were nowhere left to run. Ikenna snarled. "This isn't over," he roared. But Adobe stepped forward, meeting his gaze. "It is," she said. "Your reign of terror ends now." And with that, Chief Okafor drove his spear straight into Ikenna's heart. A scream rang through the night. Then silence. Ikenna collapsed. The darkness fell with him. The village stood still. The firelight flickered across their faces. Mama Ejima wept silently. Ezinne gripped Adora's hand, her voice shaking. "It's over," she whispered. But Adaora, she wasn't so sure. But as she stared down at Ikenna's lifeless body, she could have sworn she saw his lips curl into a smile. And somewhere, deep in the forest, another shadow stirred. But the war isn't over yet. Adaora stood over Ikenna's lifeless body, her heart still racing from the adrenaline that surged through her veins. She had seen him die. The spear had struck true, and yet there was a feeling gnawing at the back of her mind. "It's over," Ezinne's words echoed. But Adaora couldn't shake the chilling sensation that something was wrong. The villagers celebrated, their voices ringing out in triumph. But Adora's eyes never left Ikenna's body. It was as if the man had left behind a curse, a lingering presence. Her gaze drifted to the corner of the room, where Mama Ejima still waits, her shoulders shaking with silent sobs. She had known the truth all along, had been part of it. She had helped to maintain the network of terror that had enslaved this village for so long. Adaora had trusted her. The betrayal stung deeply. Suddenly, something caught her attention. Ikenna's fingers twitched. A low rasping breath seemed to escape from his throat, as though his body wasn't ready to surrender to death. Adora's pulse quickened, and she stepped closer, her instincts screaming for her to turn away. "No!" Her breath caught in her throat. Ikenna's eyes snapped open, and this time, they weren't the eyes of a man, but of something darker, something unnatural. His lips parted, revealing a muffled laugh. "You fools," he rasped, his voice thick with malice. "You think you have won. You don't understand the power you have just unleashed. This is far bigger than me, than you, than any of us." Adora's heart dropped. In that moment, the world seemed to slow around her. She could hear her own heartbeat echoing in her ears, each thud like a drum, warning her of an impending doom. Ikenna's body twitched again, this time violently, as though it were being controlled by an invisible force. His fingers contorted, his skin darkened in patches, his teeth grew sharp. elongating like fangs. His form shifted, no longer human, but something else entirely, a demonic force. Adaora stumbled back, horrified. She wanted to scream, but her voice caught in her throat. This wasn't just Ikenna anymore. This was something ancient, a curse that ran deeper than anything she had ever imagined. A creature bound to the shadows, to death, to the bloodshed of the past. Ikenna's bloodline is cursed, Chief Okafor muttered, his eyes wide with fear. The darkness runs through them. This is what they were always hiding. And then, the unimaginable happened. Ikenna's body dissolved, not in blood, not in flesh, but in shadow. He melted into the air, and in his place, a storm of darkness swirled, a cloud of pure evil that shot out in every direction, consuming the village with its horrific, suffocating presence. The villagers screamed. Panic spread like wildfire. The air thickened with dread, and Adaora's vision blurred. She could see nothing but the storm, black tendrils whipping through the air, destroying everything they touched. But then, Adaora felt something shift, a warmth, a pulse. Her body surged with energy she hadn't known was possible. Her body surged with energy she hadn't known was possible. It wasn't from Ikenna. It wasn't from anything dark. This was something else. Adaora remembered the ancient artifact she had found in the forest months ago. The one she had hidden in the folds of her cloak. It had belonged to her ancestors. She hadn't realized its true significance until now. Without thinking, she thrust the red cloth into the storm. As soon as it made contact, the cloud of darkness froze, like it had hit an invisible wall. Then there was silence. The storm disintegrated. The shadows unraveled like frayed threads in the wind. The force that had consumed everything, every life, was gone, but it wasn't over. Something worse was coming. The ground beneath them shuddered. The very earth seemed to mourn, as if it had witnessed the horrors of centuries past. From the shadows, a figure emerged, a woman. Her skin was pale, her hair like raven feathers, and her eyes were endless voids. She floated towards Adaora, her presence both terrifying and mesmerizing. "You have freed us, child," she whispered, her voice cold as ice. "But in doing so, you have brought the final reckoning. The curse of the butcher is not just a curse of flesh. It is a curse of blood, of souls lost to the shadows. It cannot be broken." Adaora's heart pounded. She wanted to run, to scream, but her feet were rooted to the ground, her body trembling, and the woman spoke again. "The next generation will rise from the darkness, and Ikenna's legacy will live on. It's just the beginning." Then, with a flash of blinding lights, the woman disappeared. The village was still, but Adaora knew the war had only just begun. The sun set behind the village, casting long shadows as the villagers gathered in the square. Adaora stood at the heart of the celebration, her heart swelling with pride. The haunting whispers and the shadows of Ikenna's darkness had finally been silenced. The once silent village was alive, with music, laughter, and the aroma of freshly prepared food. The villagers had thrown a feast in her honor, a tribute to the woman who had saved them all. Roasted meats, fruits, and grains lined the tables as Adaora stepped forward to speak. Her voice trembled with emotion. "This victory isn't mine alone," she said, raising her cup high. "It belongs to all of us. We are free because we stand together." Cheers erupted, but just as Adaora was about to take a sip, something in the distance caught her eye. A shadow moved near the trees at the edge of the village. But when she looked again, it was gone. Her breath caught in her throat, but she pushed it aside, shaking her head. The villagers danced into the night, but Adaora couldn't shake the feeling that somewhere Ikenna's legacy still lingered. As the fire cracked and the music played on, Adaora felt a strange chill creep up her spine. The feast was a celebration, but the darkness was far from over. Thank you for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed the story. If so, please like the video, comment what you have learned from the tale, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more enchanting tales just like this one. See you on the next one. Thank you and God bless. Bye.